You all right, me lover?
Remy Liver, how was COVID? Was it all right?
The first side effect I had was an ache where I had the vaccine. I had an ache there, and then that just moved up into my shoulders.
You've got COVID, you've fought it, and you've come out the other side.
Yeah, and I didn't get to take a single day off work, which is sad. This is Sheer Isolation. It's presented by Kieran Moore in Trowbridge and Jon Ponting in Cricklade. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is Sheer Isolation. I am Jon in Cricklade. Kieran is over in Trowbridge. You had an absolutely hella busy weekend. Give us a bit of the background because it looked fantastic.
Oh, so Alco Pop Cruiser. So it's Jack from Alco Pop Records, which is one of my favourite record labels in the UK, a little independent one. And every couple of years, he throws a party on a boat, on one of those pleasure cruises you get on the Thames. They hold like 180 people, and he packs it with bands. And it's just wonderful. It's just absolutely wonderful. But they are also bedlam. Absolute bedlam. So we get there. I get there at 4 o'clock because I want to make sure I get all my gear down to the quayside, ready to get on the boat, right? And you just never know what the traffic's going to be like or the parking situation or any of that jazz. So we get down there. We're 2 hours early, right? And the crew on the boat, so you're not allowed on until 6. They let the audience on the boat at 6:45, which means I've got 45 minutes to get the gear onto the boat, set it up, and sound check a band. And I absolutely knocked it out of the park. 4 bands played. They were all fabulous. The whole thing was a roaring success. Big shout out to my friend Jack Bell, who helped me with the PA. Absolute trooper. The whole thing was just fantastic. And then the next day, we had Semantics in Trowbridge Town Hall. I just want to cover this quickly because at the end of the set, Sam unplugs his ukulele. He comes into the audience. He does a song in front of the audience. He sings a song, and there's this one member of the audience sat in front of him who's crying. And his song is all about hope and love and the future, and this guy's just crying. So Sam naturally comes to the end of this song, and he goes, "Is it okay? Can I just give you a hug, please?" This guy's crying. They have a hug, and it's a really beautiful moment. And then the rest of the audience just hug, and everyone hugs, and everyone's crying. I've never seen that happen.
Anyway, purpose of this show, as you may well have guessed, is to promote the local music and art scene by promoting music and gigs and stuff that is happening. We have got a guest joining us very shortly.
Tim Orchard is a chap from Bath, and he previously, or how I met him, was through Moles in Bath, and he was a promoter for a promoting organisation and record label called Purr Promotions, and they literally he gave me all the advice I could possibly need in the very early stages of my sort of career. He literally taught me how to be a promoter. He gave me my first break at Moles back in 2005, 2006. The guy's a legend. Hopefully we're going to get some wonderful stories out of him in just a moment.
Look forward to that. And let's move on to our track then. We have got a track by Tenderlore. Who are they?
Tenderlore. So I actually don't know where they're from, but they are Southwest based. But they happen to be performing this weekend at Trowbridge Town Hall Arts. I did a quick YouTube check to see, what they're up to, what they're doing, and remarkably, they are on about 6 dozen Sofa Sounds sessions. So that's a future guest, Jon, Sofa Sounds. But for the time being, this is a Tenderlore and a song called Annie's Ghost.
You said Annie's Angel earlier.
This is a song by Tenderlore called Annie's Angel.
To not feel
So that track is Annie's Angel. It is by Tenderlore. They're playing in Trowbridge this weekend, or you can find them. I'm assuming this is part of a tour. Do you know?
You know what? I have a feeling this is just sort of a one-off.
Just have to look out for them online then. That's Tender spelled in the usual way, then Lore.
Tenderlore.
Right then.
So, product placement.
Yes, what have you got? A book?
I've got maths, because I'm not American, maths tricks to blow your mind. This is a book by Kyle D. Evans. And Kyle will be known to many people because he was in a really popular band from Portsmouth. He played all over the southwest, Swindon. They were massively popular at 2000 Trees. And he was in a band called the Retrospective Soundtrack Players, who remain one of my favouriteest bands and groups of people. Everything they penned and wrote was just genius and fantastic. Well, Kyle is also a maths teacher. Way! And he's written some books on maths. So this is me supporting what he does. But also, it's kind of cool.
Do you want to give us an example? Give us a trick.
I can't because it's maths. It's not complex. This is layman's term maths. This is stuff that you can figure out. It's really quite clever. So that picture there, which I'm sure you're familiar with, that concept. Well, he writes underneath it, I'm sure you've seen this kind of thing before, undoubtedly accompanied by a glut of people fighting tooth and nail over the solution. Well, you know what, Kyle? I have. That's absolutely true. I need to read now why they're all wrong and why the maths is correct.
Sounds like a great idea for a gift for Christmas. So what was it called?
Maths Tricks to Blow Your Mind. It's a journey through viral maths. It might even just be related to internet stuff. So who knows? But bloody good fun. Great stocking fillers, or that present for your awkward uncle. You just don't know what to get them, or aunt, because we're not exclusionary here.
Available from all good bookshops and probably Amazon as well. But bookshops first.
Bookshop. I bought mine from Devices Books.
Right then, Kieran, so it is time for us to introduce this week's guest, who is Tim Orchard, who is a chap you've known for years, a fellow music promoter and also songwriter. This interview, it's kind of turned into a masterclass for anyone who wants to do what you do, is like getting into music promotion and like starting off in the smaller venues and getting your bands in and knowing the do's and don'ts of what you should be doing. It was fascinating to listen to you two.
Oh, well, that was very lovely of you to say so. That was really lovely little trip down memory lane, really. So, but also like just sort of imparting to him what he did for me, really, because I don't think he appreciated a lot of that at the time.
Then we do talk a lot in this interview about Purr Promotions, which is the name of Tim's promotion company, and also Moles in Bath. And for people who don't know Moles, it's a very pokey but incredibly popular venue, and they've had some incredible names in there because they punch well above their weight in terms of floor space.
Well, yeah, it's called Moles because it's subterranean. So you have to go down the steps and go underground. So yes, but it is tiny. And if you are local and you know, a couple of years ago it actually burned down. So it's looking a lot cleaner than it used to in the 90s and early noughties.
I've not been in there actually since they've kitted it out again, so I don't know.
It's great down there. I mean, it was great before, but it's really great now.
Anyway, over to Tim.
At the moment, I'm doing quite a lot of songwriting with various bands and things. So there's a couple of bands in Italy, a band called the Mad Rollers, a band called Judah, and a band called Zach. And I work with all three of them, and I write songs. And they have albums that come out, physical albums on vinyl and CD and the like. So I've been doing a lot of that recently. So
I had no idea you did that because you were in bands before, weren't you?
Yeah, I was in bands when I was in my teenage years, and then I retired when I hit my 30s. I thought I've time to retire, but then I got talked back into it, and then I've realised now that the time to retire is when you actually drop dead on the stage in front of an audience. So
someone said something similar to me once. I thought about giving it all up, sort of, and they said, Kieran, if you're still doing it by the time you're 30, you'll do it forever. And here I am, 38, ploughing on.
Okay, yeah. Since I hit my 50s, I've been doing all sorts of exciting things with all sorts of people. So I started running a club night in London. I obviously did Purr in Bath for 10 years.
We'll come to Purr in a minute.
Yeah. But more recently, I've been doing glam rock club nights, or obscure beneath the radar glam rock club nights.
Is that modern glam rock bands, or is that old stuff?
So it's like I don't know whether you know like compilations like Nuggets, where it's basically all the British invasion stuff which influenced all the American bands in the 60s. And then someone made a compilation which was really kind of influential, and then that's been done recently with bands from the 70s. So bands, most people think that between the beginning of the 70s and punk, nothing happened, but everything happened every week, as you know.
Of course. So, there's very rarely that nothing ever happens. There's always something happening.
And I'm usually interested in the sort of like the soft underbelly of what's happening, though. So if that makes any sense.
Well, actually, that's a really nice segue into how we met. We met at Purr, at Mole's Club in Bath on the Purr nights, and what you described there is very much what I liked about music. It was all those unknown bands, all those underbelly things, the things that were happening, people doing things slightly different. They couldn't get famous because they were awkward, but they were just brilliant outliers. And that's what made me love Purr. And you were Purr. Who was it what you did Purr with? It was
basically me, but and whoever else would be foolish enough to join in with me at the time. So when I started doing it, the first year, it was just me with someone promising to turn up eventually that never did. But I did it for 10 years, and then I just thought it was time to jump off the roundabout because someone else would jump on, So.
But I think the jumping on was me, because you had a Thursday night at Mole's, didn't you?
Yeah.
And it was around about 2004, I think, that I started doing my own gigs, and we had the Fog Band play.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes. Yeah. My favourite band.
Yeah, they're my favourite band. Oh, I just love them. When you came over to Devices because I think the boys in the band did encourage you, Ollie and that, they'd encourage you to come over. And you came over with all your Purr merch, which I loved. And this is weird, bloody back room of a pub in the middle of one of the housing estates. And it was rammed. Head to toe rammed with people, absolutely buzzing. And I think it was at that moment that you went, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. And you put a good word in with Phil at Mole's, and I got a Monday night at Mole's off the back of your word.
Oh, so, brilliant! Okay, cool.
Thanks, Tim.
You're welcome.
That set me up for life. After that, I was away then.
Yeah. I did it. I started doing it just completely by accident. It was like a girlfriend of mine wanted to DJ there, and I couldn't convince the Candy that ran the night before me, Titillate. I couldn't convince her to give them a DJ slot, and then she wanted to go and do something else, and it got offered to me. So I thought, okay, and then I can get them a DJ slot. And also I kept on recommending bands to Candy, and she said, Tim, the bands you talk about will never ever play in Bath under any circumstances because they live in America and things like this. And there was a band called the Demolition Doll Rods that I wanted to give a gig to. They were from Detroit, and she said that will never ever happen. So that was one of the first bands I went for. So and I got them.
You got them.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. I can remember because you had the first UK show of Japanese band, the 5, 6, 7, 8s.
We did, yeah, and we made an all ages show as well, and so there was 7-year-olds meeting them, So.
And that was, I was just blown away by that, because it's the way that you went about doing it. You just, you literally contacted them and said, like, would you like a date? And it became their first gig of their first UK tour. I was just like, that's insane. But it was that way that you, particularly inspired me, is to just be ambitious, but in your own way, not like ambitious try and get Oasis to play Moles again 20 years after they were massively famous. But instead
I was there that night.
Were you?
When Oasis played Moles, yeah. I was writing for a local newspaper, and I had a column, I had 2 pages to fill about music, and I got asked along by Whiteout, actually, the band that supported them.
Right. And you went, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I ended up on the tour bus, so that was fun, But the 5, 6, 7, 8 thing, Phil Andrews told me that not to do all ages shows because it wouldn't work. And then after I left, they did loads of all ages shows. So I tried to convince him that the future generation of Moles attendees were currently underage. And if you let them in and give them that experience and let them see live music, they'll remember it forever, and it will be forever, you know, in their hearts that's what they did, you know. So
absolutely. But what I want to know, well, you said you did work at the paper and that, but what did you do before you were a promoter? What got you into music in the first instance?
My uncle, when I was about 4, and it was because my granny and granddad were really boring, and I couldn't bear to be in the same room as them. So, and he used to be playing music in another room, so I used to just migrate into this room and sit there, and it was full of smoke. But once the smoke cleared, you know, there was all these records all over his bed. So I started lifting them up and saying, "What does this one sound like? Play this one, you know." And he used to end up giving me piles and piles of records. So I got into records when I was about 4 or 5.
Wow.
And then I got into buying records when I was 9, and I got into being in bands when I was 15. And then I got into writing about bands after that. And then I got into promoting bands after that. So
what would you say were some of your better or highlights, or certainly the small bands that are now massive?
The thing about the small bands that are now massive, that troubles me. I like the small bands that stay small, and I like the bands that aren't interfered with by record labels, and I like the bands that manage to keep their second cousin on bass, even though he's got a big nose, that kind of thing, you know. So I'm all up for that kind of thing. And it troubles me when people when a band used to first come and play for me, it was usually like with their mums and dads, and it was brilliant. And then if they were still going 2 years later, it would be with lots of middle management idiots that would just be demanding, where's the food rider, where's the drinks rider, where's our individual keys to the dressing room, where's our towels, you know, that kind of thing, you know. And I just thought, oh, go away, you know. So, but you know what it's like. So
I do know. Well, I had my first experience of that at Moles when I had, as one of my last gigs at Moles before I left and went somewhere else. Their tour manager turned up, and I was 21, 22. I was quite young. I was still reasonably inexperienced at that level. And he produced this contract for me to sign, and I just signed it. And there you go, mate. It's all sorted. He goes, right, I want this, I want that. You signed the contract. And he frogged marched me around Moles. And I was just like, well, it was all right in the end, but it taught me a very valuable lesson, never to sign anything.
I used to have contracts for most of the headlining bands I had into Moles, unless they were bands where I'd instigated it completely by myself, and when I'd actually got them to come over to the country and then find them other gigs to play around the country to make it viable. But when it was a contractual thing, I always used to thoroughly read the contract and negotiate and and cut the food rider down to something more reasonable. This kind of thing. And they'd always there's always be like a way they'd try and get you. And one time I remember I'd left this thing where they'd asked for 30 guests and I forgot and I missed that bit out. But normally speaking, but the trouble is the tour manager and the agent never talk to each other. So you have to bring a physical copy of the contract to the gig and say, read it and weep, you know? So,
unlucky, mate. Try next time. So. Well, one of the best bits of advice you gave me about promoting was in Moles, and you said to me, Kieran, what you got to do is document everything you do to promote the show. And then if in the event that nobody comes, you can prove that you did everything you possibly could to make the show good. And that is worth more than, anything else. It really sets out how people view and think about you. And I did that for many years prior to the invention of social media, when it all took over. I would be taking photocopies of like magazines and clippings and so on, presenting it to the band as they arrived. You'd be amazed how the reaction people had to that. They thought that was incredible.
That's exactly what that's exactly what we did. We did buy every publication, photocopy it, give it to them, because that was the only way they get that stuff.
I can remember one time I did embarrass myself in front of you once. Because right at the beginning, I was chatting. I said, "Oh, Tim, I've come across this band that I love. You should totally get them. They're called 65 Days of Static." And you turned around and you said to me, "Kieran, I've had them twice."
Yeah.
I was like, and I felt like such a dick because I probably should have known that, but I just didn't know it. And I was just like, but also it really underlines the fact that they were a support band when they played for you at Moles.
Yeah.
Grown on to be this huge mammoth of a band.
Yeah.
But like that, and that kind of also underlines how it's important to watch support bands, because if you're doing it the way that you did it, which was really curated nights, you had a very clear idea of what you're trying to achieve and how you want people to feel and sound like. And I try and do that with my shows. I try and make bands complement each other and all the rest of it. And yeah, you always picked incredible support acts.
Thank you. I mean, the thing is, what I had people used to come up and say, I came here tonight to watch the headliners, but I like the two supports more. And and people would think when I said I'm going to give you a gig, they thought I'd forgotten, but I hadn't. I was just waiting for the right lineup, you know, to make it the perfect show. And then I get my DJs to listen to the bands and you know, look at their lists of influences or things they were into, and just create the whole night around, you know, that particular theme kind of thing, you know. And it always worked really, really well. And I went to at least 3 weddings where people had sort of like got married because they'd met at my night, you know.
Oh, amazing. And
there was like one couple had like a storyboard of flyers for my gigs where they'd arranged at this gig to meet at this gig, and then at that gig to meet at this gig, you know. So
that's incredible.
So it was good. It was good fun.
I kept every flyer of every gig I ever went to, and I have got a section of Mole's Purr flyers. So
cool. Yeah.
There you go. So if you could just pick a song that it could be one you released if you wanted, or anything that you particularly want people to hear again.
Well, I went to HTV Studios with the Fog Band, and they did Law of the Sea live on television, and it was fantastic. And I remember it being absolutely pinned to the wall by the band, you know, like by the force of the music. And I felt like I was like 15 again. It was a real kind of moment.
Trying hard to remember how we ever started out with our sights so high. Looking down, seeing your yellow fingers, and if you don't understand, then at least that's why. If you really want some understanding, you will know it can be quite frustrating. If you really want to understand it, you will learn it can be quite demanding. Could it be I'm alive after all then? Picking pennies off the floor with my cold hands. Look at me, no hands, ain't it cool, yeah? Look at her falling out of a taxi cab. If you really want some understanding, you will learn it can be quite frustrating. If you really want to understand it, you should talk to Mr. Understanding.
So that song was Pete and the Pirates' Mr. Understanding, in lieu of any footage of the Fog Band, because YouTube didn't exist when all these bands were knocking around Purr. As a result, there isn't a video of fog bands on YouTube.
Yeah, and then that track we've just played, that's obviously not a new track. I mean, the video was uploaded 13 years ago, but I don't know exactly when that tune was released.
Probably was released in 2008. It probably was released then because they did put all these singles out by these bands. That sort of 2004 wave of indie rock bands like Block Party and so on. There was so many bands in that era, and Pete and the Pirates came from that era type scene. But I've just noticed that song had 1 million views on YouTube, so they weren't a small band. They did all right for themselves. So that probably came after they were signed to Purr, but nevertheless, Purr did put out their first single. We just don't have a video for it. We just don't have a video for it, and that's what you get for dealing with niche bands.
And being really pernickety about tracks must have videos for our YouTube content.
Sorry, Tim, but we chose one that I think you'll appreciate.
On to news quickly. There has been a lot of talk across Bristol, or actually across the UK, a campaign just to raise awareness about spiking in nightclubs, which I know you were looking into as a venue runner yourself.
There was, I think, last weekend or this weekend just gone, it was an official protest for women in general to not go out on Saturday night. I don't know how successful or anything about it, to be honest. It was all quite last minute that I realised it was even happening. But yes, there has been an awful lot of an increase in spiking of drinks. And it's not just dropping a pill into a drink. They've also been injecting people. And that is just downright terrifying, frankly. And it's got to stop. And men have got to, it's always men, they've got to be responsible for our actions. And it's genuinely terrifying. But I did send a message to David at the town hall in Trowbridge where I work. We're going to have a conversation about how we advertise the fact that it's not acceptable and that we have a policy on it and so on and so forth. And just really bring that conversation to the streets of Trowbridge and say, let's not do that. So, yeah, it's really, really sad to find out that it's happening and that it's so prevalent.
We are going to try and track down somebody from one of the local campaign groups just to see if they can give us a bit of advice and some hints and tips and just raise a bit more awareness from their side. Obviously, they'll have
that's a good shout, John.
First-hand experience of having to deal with the victims of this. So let's try and track somebody down to chat to us in a future episode. If you want to get in touch with us, then the best way of doing that is to email sheerisolation@gmail.com, or you can look up on the website sheerisolation.co.uk. That is sheer with 2 E's. Get in touch. Tell us about any new videos you got coming out if you're in a band, or any gigs or anything you want to talk about to do with the local music scene.
Music gossip, count me in.
Yeah. Cool. In that case, we will leave it at that. So thank you for listening, everybody.
That's a wrap, John.
Thank you for listening, everybody. We will be back next week with another guest and some more tracks. So until then, take it easy. Stay safe.
Ciao.
See you later. Bye-bye now.